Welcome to It's Black and White, a brand new episode series from Turin Giants, where Frederic and I do what we do best, and that is fight about important matters regarding Juventus in a concentrated, no hold bar arena. Frederic, are your sleeves rolled up, hands wrapped, and mouth guard in?
I have the gloves ready. I'm ready to do this, so bring it on.
Alrighty, well, tell everybody what It's Black and White is all about.
Well, basically, because we often disagree on our other shows, we decided that it would be a good idea if we make a separate segment where you and I talk about specific matters within Juventus as a whole. And we let the viewers, our faithful and loving viewers, decide on who won this bout and also give them the opportunity to give us some subjects to fill a little debate upon because Juventus, if anything, has been polarizing over the last couple of years. And so we created this virtual arena to joust it out between the both of us and involve the viewers as well. And I think it makes for some interesting content, and I hope the viewers enjoy it as well. So we look forward to hearing from them as well.
All right, absolutely agree. We want to hear from you. But before we jump into it, the timing of this debut release was intentional because this episode marks my 100th episode with Turin Giants,
Oh,
a milestone I'm extremely proud of. And Frederic and I thought it would be super cool to celebrate that for both ourselves as well as for all of you, the listeners who listen to us across the globe, the frequent contributors on Turin Giants Instagram, and the commenters and live participants during our Turin Giants official YouTube programs to celebrate all of what you do for us and my milestone of achieving this 100 episodes. So I'm really proud about it, and hopefully y'all enjoy this as much as I know Frederic and I will. Frederic, 100 episodes, I can't believe it. I
amazing.
almost got balder over the course of these 100 episodes, if that's possible. But I think we're ready to turn it over and start this episode for real. What is the topic we're going to be discussing today?
Well, the topic is the following: whether a core of consisting of Bremer, Koop, Yildiz, and David are enough to bring us back to glory or our former glory. And before we get into that, I wanted to take a minute to thank you for not only the things that you do concerning Turin Giants and this new episode, but as a whole, because I feel like over the course of more than a year, made a lot of friends also because of you. And even though we often disagree, I find it completely. I'm completely happy with sharing views about Juventus with you and in a way that's constructive. So I'd like to thank you for your 100 episodes and congratulate you on that.
I appreciate your congratulations. That does not mean I'm going to be taking it easy on you today. The question is whether a core of Bremer, Koop, Yildiz, and David, the outfield spine of this team, will bring Juventus back to glory. And the answer to me is clear. It's yes. Those four players can be built around to bring Juventus back to the years of Scudetto winning past, and that is in zero doubt in my mind. Real quickly, start off with Bremer. Obviously, dealing with long-term injuries. Fortunately, at his position, it shouldn't materially affect his ability to be the best defender in Serie A, like he's been whenever he is playing. Both leading both with his demeanor on the pitch as well as with his strength in the locker room. Move to Koop, a player that we criticized very heavily for a long time. But we see under Spalletti a newfound confidence and control over games, demonstrating his passing prowess not only over increasing pace, but over distance, really expanding his passing range, actually being in top five on our team in medium and long range passes attempted and completed. What's really missed about Koop Miner's oftentimes since he joined Juventus is that he actually is a leader at heart, unlike many folks on our team, having captained his two previous sides. And for people who've been at the stadium can attest that since he's been under Spalletti, he's been marshaling the forces around him to ensure that we are structured in a way that is balanced. His leadership chops and this new found form will bring us to new heights. Yildiz, Very little to say here other than Nico Paz, the unquestionable top young talent of Serie A, and nothing more needs to be said about our number 10. And finally, Jonathan David, maybe the most controversial one of these four. He came in with well-established credentials, coming in at 25 years old and becoming instantly the third most goal contributor on our team, only trailing two 30-plus year olds. Now, having surpassed them in the 15 games we've had this season. Collectively, the ability's there, the leadership there, the youth is there, and these four players can be built around to bring us back to glory.
I wholeheartedly disagree on that point, and I'm going to tell you why as well. Because I feel that Bremer, and I'm trying to look into retrospect as well, because there is a financial aspect about this that is also very important, I think, because we don't have an unlimited budget. But if you see what we've paid for Bremer, and if you see how consistent he has been, especially in the beginning, then you might, be able to say he did a good job. But the last, let's say, 2 years, he's been in and out of injuries. He hasn't performed or did what his contract told him to do because of those injuries. And I have a feeling that due to those injuries, he'll lose a lot of the power that he has as a back, as a center back. And I'm fairly sure, and I hope not, because I hope I'm wrong. Let's get that straight. But I think he will never get or reach the same level that he did reach in his prime years with Juventus. So that's why I'm not counting on him. I'm not questioning his qualities as a player, individual per se, but I think that I'm just not counting on him to make that comeback and reach the level that he did. Moving on to Koop, I think Koop Meiners is a very skilled individual, but only thrives is if put in the perfect circumstances, as we saw at Atalanta. The moment that he is not in the perfect circumstances, he's not good enough, in my opinion, to take the team on his back, leap forward, and create something new or diminish the opponent's way of playing. So I feel that given the context of an Atalanta side that's been trained by Gasperini for a long time, that has numerous automatisms or whatever you want to call it, still instilled in the team, it makes for a great Koop. With us, not so much, and I'm pretty sure that he will never reach the level that he did at Atalanta because A, it's going to take too much time, and B, I feel that mentally he's not up to par to perform well enough or the way that we expect him to. Moving on to Kenan, I kind of agree there, but the thing that bothers me most is the consistency. I think Kenan is a very good, talented player, maybe one of the best we had in years. You could put him at the level of Pogba. But if you compare those two, and I know it's a bit of a rough comparison, but for the sake of argument, compare those two, you could say that Pogba's impact and consistency was a lot higher when he started at Juventus. Didn't have that, had that wonder boy etiquette, on the back of his neck tag as well, but always performed. He didn't always score or hand out assists, but there were always moments in the game where you could see that he had such a demeanor, such a presence on the pitch, and he did something that was potentially of use for Juventus. Whereas Kenan often might feel that if he's not in a game, then it's very difficult for him to turn that switch off and just do something that gets him or the team back in the game. So I feel like Kenan has a lot to learn still, even though I'm not questioning his talent, his motivation, his love for Juventus or whatever. But from the four that we mentioned, I think he is the one where, you might be able to filter in a bit of gray instead of the black and white. But moving on to the last, Jonathan David, I have lots of respect for Jonathan David, not only for the person who he is, but the way that he handles things. But I do feel that Jonathan David is a bit of a similar story to Koopmeiners, meaning that Jonathan David performs well if put in the right context with people that play well around him. I don't think that Jonathan David is the type of striker. A lot of people compare him to Trezeguet, I think. The quality Trezeguet had, that he could decide a game even if he wasn't, in the game. And I think Jonathan David doesn't have that ability. And I think that's an ability that we as Juventus now need desperately. We need a striker that can just come in and score out of nothing, in order to give us that boost. And I feel like Jonathan David, for the time being, because you never know what happens in the future, but Jonathan David, for the time being, is a player that needs that reassurance, that needs that good feeling vibe within a game, that needs to be in a game, needs to be confident, needs to be patted on the back at times in order to perform. And I really feel that we need somebody who can just come in, get a goal in, and lift us up. So those are my points for now, but I'm pretty sure you'll have something to say about that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're gonna go in turn, because we start with Bremer, and you talk about his injury. He might not be the same person. Let's be real. Let's talk about another top tier center back who suffered a horrific injury. Virgil van Dijk just about blew out his ACL. What was it? 2020, 2021, missed an entire season. Dude came back, has played over 35 games a season for a top tier team, starting, captaining as a center back. Those types of injuries, while gruesome and certainly could affect Bremer mentally, physically, it's not going to have the same effect that it will on Chiesa, who was so reliant on pace. So I don't think it's fair to say that Bremer's going to be materially held back in his ability to anchor our defense like he did in the past because of this injury. You can absolutely come back from an injury like this and serve that role in your team. And there's other examples. Virgil van Dijk's just the one that pops into my head as someone who's done that.
Yeah, I mean, you have a valid point there, but we have to, take into consideration two things. One is that one thing is the fact that he suffered a very heavy injury, came back for a limited amount of time, had another one, which is mentally very exhausting for a player. So we don't have to, brush over that aspect. I think that's a very, very important aspect. And the fact that the type of player that he is in terms of physicality is not to be compared with Virgil van Dijk, due to the fact that Virgil had a lot of people in midfield playing for him as well, being able to push back the opponents a lot so that Virgil could have those rest moments in the game. Whereas if you look at the Juventus that we see now, every time that we are attacked in a game, it always comes down to our center backs that have to intervene at some point. It's more often than not the center backs that have to intervene have to be physical. And that's where I think that the issue for Bremer is going to lie, because I think that if you put him into this Juventus right now and you expect him to play the games in Champions League and Serie A and get that amount of pressure on you physically and mentally, I just don't think that it's going to be good for him. I think if we were to say like he's going to be coming back, around Easter time, we give him time to build up and whatever gradually, then I might be a bit more positive. But now, everything points in the direction that Spalletti wants to put him in defense no matter what or how. And my fear is that's going to be too early in terms of physicality. And I also dare to think that the mental aspect will be very heavy for him. But time and the viewers will tell, I think.
But you mentioned coverage in the midfield that Van Dijk had. That leads me to Koop somewhat, because I think Bremer's going to have that coverage. Koop Miners, you said, requires the quote-unquote perfect circumstances like at Atalanta. Well, guess what? Spalletti comes in and tells Mr. Perfect Circumstances that he's going to play, Braccetto. And he comes in, and all of a sudden, he's fantastic. Since he's come in, both at the left center back position as well as in the midfield that we've seen him the few times that we have, he has been top 3 on our team in passing, completing long passes, which was a big complaint about him past. He's now moved up the ranks in terms of winning tackles, interceptions, and clearances on our team, showing that he has a two-way player in different circumstances, notably in Atalanta, despite now finally demonstrating a bit of the level of dominance and form that we saw in Bergamo. So I think Bremer actually can have that coverage because Koop Miners has awoken into this two-way player that we hadn't seen for a year and a half.
I once again partially agree with you because I think that we cannot overlook the fact that Koopmeiners has made some sort of progress. Whether he's gonna pull through in midfield remains to be seen because we only saw sporadic moments of Spalletti moving him back into midfield. And granted, those were good moments, especially the link up play with Moretti for me was something that seemed very promising at the time. So I agree with you there. But the main question is if those players will be good enough, that core will be strong enough to bring us back, and that therein lies my issue because I don't think that Koopmeiners is the kind of midfielder you expect or will be able to get that whole midfield going. I think he'll have moments. I think he'd do well, but I don't think he's going to do well enough to turn everything that's going against us around. That's my opinion, but it remains to be seen who he's going to be linked up with. And that was what I was referring to, like ideal circumstances. If we get like two other midfielders in who complement each other and cope as well, then we could see a whole different kind of vibe. But that remains to be unseen. So for the time being, as of now, and I'm thinking about Thuram, Locatelli, maybe even Weston, pairing them with Coop in the middle, and putting all hope on Coop. Um, I think is a flawed logic in that aspect. So
But but you say it's a flawed logic, but that's exactly what Spalletti did against Paphos. He said, "Look, we need to change things up. I'm going to put Koopmeiners into the midfield." And we saw Koopmeiners with Locatelli and Moretti. We saw Koopmeiners with just Moretti. Then we saw Koopmeiners with Thuram. We saw him play with literally every single other midfielder, him being the only common factor. And guess what happened? That those changes with Koop at the center of them in the midfield were what propelled us to win that game. I think you see right then and there that he can be the core around which that midfield is built. And let's be real, our midfield has not been good. Those Thuram and Moretti have not been good. But when they've played, granted small sample size, but when they've played with Koop, he has made the whole engine play better and quicker since Spalletti has been manager.
and that's a very promising aspect. But the thing is, doing it 25 minutes against, with all due respect, an opponent of the likes of Paphos, or doing it every game in Serie A against much tighter midfields, much more aggressive midfields, and the odd game against a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, Bayern Munich. I don't know, because those are the teams that you want to play against if you're back on that level. And therein lies my fear. I think he can do it sporadically. I think he can do it giving, the looking at the opponents, or knowing when to do it. But if you're gonna ask or demand from him to do that every single game, then I feel that we're gonna see the same results as we did last year. I feel.
I think there's not much to discuss about Yildiz. We both agree he's young, but he is from an attacking presence who this team should build around to reach that former glory. So I want to skip to David. David, you compared somewhat to Coop Miners in terms of requiring the proper circumstances. I mean, let's be real. It's not like he's played for world beaters, though, right? He's played for team, upper mid-table league teams, a good team in Belgium when he was really young, and he has consistently performed. And before you say that he's just farming on the low-level talent in France, is he is known, unlike maybe a tall, handsome Serbian on our team, to score in clutch moments. His goal contribution per game is better in the Champions League than it is in league play over the course of his career. I mean, and what, every three quarters of a game, he contributes a goal in the Champions League over the course of his career since he was 18. And keep in mind, he's only 25, and that which is just astronomical. And like I said, already number one goal contributor on our entire squad. Okay, more so than guys like Milik. Albeit he hasn't played for a few years, but he was a legitimate striker in Italy and Liga for over a decade. For Kostic, who in the Bundesliga was an absolute dynamo on the left wing, feeding assists into players. And Jonathan David's number one, not just against low level Liga talent.
Yeah. Once again, I tend to agree with you a bit. On the other hand, I feel that if you revert back to the question at hand, if it's going to be good enough to bring us back to former glory, I have to say I disagree because once again, I draw the comparison with Trezeguet. And Trezeguet, if you look at, the beginning of his career, he used to score a lot of goals like David did, but he did that all the time in terms of no matter the opposition, no matter the competition, no matter the quality of the players that he was playing with. Tre- Trezeguet needed half a goal or half a chance to score a goal, whereas with David, I see that it takes a lot. And I'll give you points on that last discussion because I feel that David still has a long way to go in terms of integrating in Italy and Juventus, and I think when he does that, if he'll eventually do that, I think we'll see his full potential. But if he's good enough, and if you ask me now, is this the type of striker you want in your team for the next 5 years to be decisive? I just say no. I think he's a good player to have if he gets a lot more consistent. But I think if you reach for the ambitions we had in the past, being at least quarterfinals, Champions League every year, and competing for Serie A, then I think he's gonna fall short. Not that it's that a negative thing, but I just don't see in him the qualities of a top tier striker, the likes of a Trezeguet, Haaland, whatever. So
Who's the best striker in Serie A right now? Or just, I mean, just in general, who's the best striker? Is it Lautaro Martinez? I mean, you don't have to like him to say he's the best striker.
no, 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 no. It just for me the whole concept, and maybe that's my issue with David as well. The whole concept since the Guardiola era of what is a center forward striker has changed dramatically. Because if you look at, let's say, 7 8 years ago, every top team in Europe played with a center forward striker, whether it be a tall one or a technical one or whatever. You always had that one center forward, whereas teams now shift to having more wingers and shadow strikers, which is fine by me. But you see that the talent of a center forward is not highlighted, and we don't bring out in Europe a lot of center forwards with that specific role. And that's also my issue with David, because I think that David is very good if he's not in the point per se, but looking at the Paphos game, holding a bit back, being that, glue up front, then I think his qualities come out more. But
But that's
I
but that's
just
but that's but that's a lot. That's honestly very much like how Lautaro Martinez has played. He can link up with play. He can be a poacher. He can aggravate people. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not the fastest guy in the world. And I think most people will not fight me too much to say that right now, and certainly over the past several years, the best striker in Serie A is Lautaro Martinez. Lautaro Martinez, where Jonathan David is 2.5 years younger with the exact same goal contribution per 90 minutes, a better goal contribution per 90 minutes in Champions League games, who hasn't gotten the run of games he deserves at Juventus. You give a guy with that pedigree the run of games he deserves, which he's starting to get, and he's starting to contribute, as you've seen. You can build around. He's pound for pound with the best striker in Serie A. Bremer is the best player on our team when healthy, best defender. Yildiz is, with Nico Paz, the best young talent in Serie A, and Koop Miners is awakening to be one of the best two-way midfielders, at least, albeit small sample size, since Spalletti's joined, and that is why I think this core will lead us to future glory. I think, Frederic, that we can
I messed it
agree.
up.
No, no. But I think we can agree that whether these four players will lead Juventus to future glory, not gory, glory, remains a black and white issue. Would you agree?
Of course. And I'm hoping for some support via the usual channels, but I'm gonna let you finish on that.
All right, everybody. This again was our debut episode of It's Black and White. Please let us know what you thought, who won, who lost, who you agreed with, what you agreed with in the comments, whether it be on Spotify, hit us up on Instagram at Turn Giants, or in the comments to this video at Turn Giants official YouTube. Also, let us know what topics about Juventus you'd like to see us discuss in the future and any feedback that you might have as we sort of adapt to this new episode series. We appreciate you, Frederic, as always. I personally appreciate you. And until we speak again, as always, to everybody, Forza Juve.